Secretary. Mr. Lamborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, thank you all for your service. Appreciate your being here. And I respect the decisions that you have to make. I respect our Commander-in-Chief, President Barack Obama, and the difficult decisions that he has to make, agonizing decisions in many cases. You may remember I asked a question last night in the classified briefing that was given to the House about possible retaliation. And I asked this of Director James Clapper, if he knew of threats against our homeland or against our assets, against our interests. And I'm confident that everything that can be done to protect us will be done of threats that we know of. But given the serious nature of what we're looking at and almost the certainty that should a military strike be done by the U.S. on Syria, there will be some attempts at retaliation. There will be serious consequences. Given all that, I just have to express some doubts I have, and I'm happy to hear your response to this. But when I look at the pattern of leadership over the last few years, I just have some doubts. For instance, leading from behind in Libya. To me, that is not a good pattern. The unresolved murders in Benghazi. You know, I'm very disturbed about that. I hear about that from my constituents to this day, almost on a constant basis. The massive defense budget cuts that we've had over the last 4.5 or so years. That causes me concern. Pressuring Israel to make concessions that could harm Israel's security. I have doubts about that. So when I put all those doubts together, and I know that we're going to have serious consequences, I'm very reluctant to vote yes on this upcoming resolution. And I have many constituents, a great majority, who feel the same way, and they've articulated this very same concern. Is there anything that you can say that would relieve my doubts or concerns that I've just expressed to you?
Congressman, I'll respond initially, and I suspect my colleagues would want to say something. You've covered a number of dimensions of your concern, legitimate, and obviously that's why we're having these hearings. Let me start with Benghazi. This administration continues to follow through on the commitment the President of the United States made to find those responsible for what happened a year ago, and that's happening. DOD is working with FBI, CIA, other agencies in this. General Dempsey and I talked with Admiral McCraven, so we're closely aligned and continuing to do that. So that has not escaped the priority list of the President nor this administration. On some of the other issues you mentioned, Israel. We're working very closely with Israel on this. We are talking with Israel all the time, as Secretary Kerry noted his conversation with the Prime Minister, as we are with our allies in Turkey, in Iraq, in Jordan, in Lebanon. International community effort. This is an important piece of what the President wanted to accomplish. You heard what Secretary Kerry said in the progress that we have made and the numbers of countries that have come forward so far. There are more. There will be more. Understanding this. One last point on this. I said in my opening remarks, and I've noted it here a couple of times this morning, there is risk in inaction, too, which everyone on this committee knows. We could walk away. We understand the American public concern. I'm concerned. We're all concerned. But let's look at the other alternative here, is that we just let it go. Conversations about Iran here a few minutes ago. These other countries, Iran, North Korea, Syria, Hezbollah terrorist groups, are watching. They're observing. If there is no international response to this, if this allows to continue to play out with no response, do we think really that that makes things safer for our interests, our national security interests? Do we think this makes a more stable, secure world when we don't respond? Maybe so. I don't think so.
As a result, domestic energy production, job creation, and federal revenue will all be significantly inhibited while our dependence on foreign sources of energy continues. For decades, the states have taken it upon themselves to regulate hydraulic fracturing within their borders and have been successful in responsibly managing energy production in their states. State regulators are in the best position to handle the day-to-day management of energy production in their states. They understand the unique issues and geology and hydrology that must be considered when developing energy regulations. Just last week, we heard testimony from witnesses representing state energy regulators in Texas and Alaska. Each testified to the unique geologic issues each state faces in developing energy. Big government, one-size-fits-all blanket regulations that apply to every state, regardless of their unique features and considerations, simply will not work. States have worked tirelessly to create, maintain, and continuously update their own regulations, taking into account the differing needs of each state and the changing dynamics and technological advancement of the energy industry. And the state regulations are working. We have had numerous state regulators testify before our committee, and not one is aware of any inadequacy in their own state regulations. In fact, Commissioner Craddock of the Texas Railroad Commission testified that Texas has received representatives from numerous countries simply wanting to learn about Texas's hydraulic fracturing regulations. The bipartisan Protecting States' Rights to Promote American Energy Security Act will require the Department to defer to state regulations and will prohibit the Department from unnecessary and duplicative regulations in states that have existing regulations in place. Streamlining regulations and injecting regulatory certainty in the energy production process will allow domestic energy development to move forward, create and save American jobs, increase federal revenue, and decrease our reliance on foreign imports. I urge my colleagues to support this legislation, and Mr. Chairman, I yield back.